All right, let's knock out the last couple of slides here. Should go pretty quickly. We have psychological stress, which, as we've been speaking of, is it's a pretty big component of stress, but that leads to physical, right? So the perception is real. We've been speaking of this, but the threat doesn't have to be real. It only has to be real to the individual. Okay, so like we talked about the scary movies, that's not a real threat. Nothing's going to happen, but you can feel like it is. This is a line from The Sixth Sense. A kid, was thinking he's seen dead people, and he kind of was. So we'll experience a variation of any of this throughout that period. But what we can see, this is subjective. You can ask somebody how they feel about these things, but it can't necessarily be measured. It's only the person's perception. Objective reactions: squirming around watching a scary movie, fidgeting when scared, being critical, snippy, all these stresses. Like if you're hungry, I get hangry, right? I'll become this way. I'm not a liar or a crier, but some people will respond in these varying platforms objectively. This can be seen depending on the stressor. In fact, one of the things that, and this is from your textbook, one of the things that the ancient Chinese did was they would introduce rice powder, really dry powder, into somebody's mouth. And when that was ingested under normal conditions, the saliva would overcome the rice powder and the rice powder would come out wet. Well, a person with a dry mouth due to stress or due to lying would not salivate because they were so scared, and the rice powder would come out dry, and that was an indication of being untruthful. So you can see some of this on page 791 in your text. This can lead to a decreased quality of life, obviously. Those of you that are feeling this, I know when I talked to you yesterday or the last time we met, it was pretty evident that you were experiencing some difficulties, and it's getting worse. I understand that, but the light at the end of the tunnel is starting to appear, and all we can do is keep moving forward. Okay, so this quality of life issue, try to find things that make you happy, guys. I've been doing some things that I've been trying to catch up on, and it makes me feel good about it. So all stress conditions, this environment that we're living in now is really arming you to be a stronger person later when you're experiencing those stressors that come from the outside. Hey, I made it through this, so that I can make it through this next new thing. Uh, some people lose the inability to function normally, and then we have to turn to therapeutic means, whether it's drugs or counseling, relaxation, meditation, that's workouts, exercising, massages, thinking positive, being aware, education piece right here, just being aware of the situation. So the physiological stress, this is always or almost always accompanied by some degree of psychological. So when we see the changes physiologically, there's something happening in the brain. In most people, psychological stress leads to a physiological response. Many of these can be measurable autonomic responses. The autonomic nervous system is the one that responds on its own, right? So heart rate, increased systolic blood pressure. Systole over diastole, that's the high number, okay? Identical psychological stressors do not always induce identical responses in different individuals. Remember, everybody's different. Certain responses in one person are better indicators than certain responses in others. This one is temporary, the intrauterine stress. It's really important to remember as an expecting mother that anything that the mother encounters during the pregnancy is going to lead to hormone releases that circulate through her blood that put stress on the baby. Okay? In addition, the fetus can cause stresses on the mother. So, what's not uncommon is maternal malnutrition, the mother changing her diet. And remember, malnutrition doesn't have to just mean undernourished or overnourished. It could be poor nutrition, meaning eating poorly, not healthy foods. So it's quantity and quality. And then mal or undernourished mothers that smoke create a hypoxic, which is an oxygen poor environment, and that places stress on the developing fetus. Remember, this thing is developing at a rate which will never be seen again, and you don't want to wrong the course at the time of this developing rate. All right? so preterm delivery and low birth weight. And we can see as the time progresses during gestation, this is the hormone value and the cortisol value here. So we can compare these changes in hormone values as time progresses. And this is right up until labor. And you can see this spike at the labor line. All right. That's a lot of hormone changes to encounter for a mother. So as that occurs, baby is going to experience certain events during development that lead to specific anatomical, physiological, or disease states that develop later in life. We can train a child to respond in these ways. Affects body composition, growth weight, how old the child is at maturity. That can lead to immune, endocrine, kidney problems, reproductive problems, and affect life expectancy. So the worst time to screw up a kid, guys, is early on. Education is the silver bullet. People need to know that these things are occurring. And then we need to change our lifestyles and diets to effectively alter that trajectory. All right. Next time we meet is for your test. Take it easy.